I did want to bring up Elijah McClain a little bit. I feel like obviously everyone in Aurora knows what happened. That was a huge thing back in like 2020-ish.
He was killed in 2019.
2019.
It was 2020 that those officers were indicted.
Yeah. I guess what can you say for like the residents of Aurora? You know, what has changed since then? Because obviously that whole situation, I feel like made a lot of people not trust the police department and stuff like that. So has a lot changed since then from your perspective? Do you want to break that down a little bit?
You know, I mean, first and foremost, Elijah McClain should be alive today. Right. And this young man had no criminal record, probably didn't even have any type of violent bone in his body. And when you talk about an absolute tragedy, that is the definition of Elijah McClain. Yeah. You know, and I think that there's a lot of learning that came out of that. You know, Elijah McClain had different health issues, which is, you know, why he was wearing a ski mask and a hoodie on a hot summer night. But he had health issues, you know, and he was always cold, and that entire situation is such a tragedy. And those officers, regardless of what some say, I believe those officers and those firefighters will live with this for the rest of their life. And I believe it haunts them.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know,
sure.
I think that since then, and there's no denying it. I mean, a jury found that one police officer and two firefighters murdered him.
Right. And then the photos and everything.
It's not up for debate. Yeah. He was murdered. It is not up for debate. I think since then, there are some groups. You heard me talk about a group on the show that I was on, The Road Called Straight. This nonprofit does a lot to work with the youth in Aurora and the Aurora Police Department, and to bridge that gap and to bring them together. And they invite the police to a lot of their events. I think there is great work being done to bring the community back together. I think we have a fantastic police chief now, you know, but he also, he won't pander to the activists. You know, if an officer is wrong, he will say they're wrong. I will say they're wrong. Yeah. There's plenty of us that are ready and willing to hold officers accountable for their behavior. Right. But at the same time,
not all cops are bad.
That's right. Yeah. And
just threw my 2 cents in there.
Yeah. And that's the truth. And they're necessary.
Right.
I mean, as a woman who's not very big,
who are you gonna call?
I mean, you could pick me up and walk off with me.
Right.
Right? I mean, we have to have police. So we have to have this foundation. We have to have this communication, this level of understanding and trust. And it just seems like some of these activist groups, they have made this their platform, and that's how they gain followers. And they don't care what the facts are in any case, to include the Kylan Lewis situation, which, like I said, that officer was cleared all the way through a grand jury. The 3 police officers and the 2 firefighters, it went through the same process, a grand jury. They were indicted. All 5 of them were indicted. Now, 2 police officers were found not guilty, but Officer Michael Deek in the Kylan Lewis situation, a grand jury cleared him. At that point, there is nothing else, at least criminally, that can be done to or against this officer. Now, the family has filed a civil suit, and so we'll see where that goes.
Right.
If it is decided that the city is to be held civilly liable. But there is just this group of activists that have started to take over in several spaces that just hate the cops, no matter what. They are teaching minorities to be scared of the cops. It's sad. We have data that shows, as part of the consent decree that we're under, we have data that shows the areas of Aurora that the most 911 calls come from are minority areas. That's the highest number of 911 calls coming from the city.
To go off your point, I feel like when I was younger and I used to, get a little trouble, nothing crazy, but just, being a kid,
Yeah.
I would be like kind of more afraid of cops and like be like, oh, I don't want to be around. But that's because I was doing dumb stuff.
Right.
Now that I'm older, I'm like, I actually feel more safe around cops a lot
Right.
of times because I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, if something were to happen,
Well, that's right.
And even with like my hip hop blog at first, I was like young and it's like, oh, I know like there's probably a lot of people that may feel this type of way about my blog or this, that, and third. But then like as I got older, like there's been sometimes I'll be at an event and I'm like, there's a security guard that's a cop and I'm like, making friends with him like just because, I feel safe. And he don't even have to be white. He can be any color.
That's right.
But
that's right.
But yeah, I agree. I think everyone, I think you can agree that everyone can agree that like Elijah McClain should be here, and what happened shouldn't have happened, and
it's absolutely tragic. Right. But one thing that I think is so tragic too is and what's not talked about is that 7-Eleven clerk is the one who called 911 and reported Elijah McClain as suspicious because that location had been robbed multiple times.
Which one was it? Which 7-Eleven was
it? Northwest Aurora.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact streets right now, but
probably near Colfax.
Not a good part of town.
Yeah.
And they had been robbed several times. And this store clerk sees a man walking towards the store in a black ski mask, a black hoodie, and black sweatpants, and calls 911 for suspicious activity. Elijah McClain comes in to the gas station, grabs a couple of iced teas. He goes up to the counter, he pays for them, and he leaves. That 911 clerk never called back. To say, hey, I called, but everything was okay. That clerk never called back. Now, that's not a crime, but I think society also needs to do a better job. There could be so many what if scenarios that night, right? And what if this was done differently? And what if that was done differently? And, I'm sure that store clerk has to live with that for the rest of his life because he could have called back and said, hey, I don't know, it was kind of weird. Yeah. It's a hot summer night. But this young man came in and bought a couple of iced tea. There was no issues at all. But that clerk also never called back. Elijah McClain should be here.
And I think everyone can agree, like, finish the point. Like, he should be here and what happened was wrong. Those specific police officers were rightfully charged. But at the same time, nothing to do with that case, but I do think, like, the whole every cop is bad is kind of a crazy idea in my opinion. Well,
and even if you break down the Elijah McClain situation, everybody to this day only talks about the police. 2 out of the 3 police officers were found not guilty of anything. Found completely not guilty. Yeah. And to this day, only the police are talked about in the Elijah McClain situation.
I think what made that situation worse too was like the photos and everything. I think that.
Yeah.
But I feel like we don't need to get too deep into that stuff.